I think we're live. I think we're live. Hey everyone, how's it going?
Hello.
You think we're live? So today we're going to talk about MCP and how to develop it from scratch, but then also how to integrate it into a JetBrains IDE. And I'm super excited to have Max here, who is part of Nx, our dear friends from Nx. And Max, actually, do you want to introduce yourself before I just ramble your bio down?
Sure, thanks. Hi, my name is Max. I work at Nx. I'm a software engineer, and I spend a lot of my time working on our VS Code extensions and JetBrains IDE plugins. So editor tooling is kind of my jam.
The what? Never heard that.
And yeah, I'm based in Munich, Germany. So I think this is actually the first time we're having a conversation in English. Yeah, Niklas and me.
That's true.
It's going to be good.
Which is fun because we're both from Germany, but also now both on this side of the pond in North America. So, and still we're talking in English. So it's kind of like a mixed bag of everything. So
yeah, exactly.
Let me pull up because I'm very prepared. So let me pull up my slides that I absolutely did not prepare this very morning. So that's you. So I already mentioned that we're going to talk about MCP, Model Context Protocol, and Max worked a lot with MCP over the last couple of weeks and months, so he'll share some insights, and I'm very excited about that also, because this always comes up. I have this fancy slide prepared. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. I'll try to do some coding, do some watching the chat. So if you have any questions, just drop them there. We'll get to that. If it's a more elaborate question, we might take this off the stream and go to our Discord and answer the questions there later on. We'll see how that plays out. But that's that. We also we like doing those live stream because it's a great way to interact with the community and also like build authentic relationship with Max, who's maintaining our, well, not our, but a JetBrains plugin. So, but we're also very interested in improving this and make this as entertaining and as educational as we can. So if you have any feedback, there's this fancy link that we have. Also the QR code, because that's apparently a thing still. And last question before we go to the more interesting part, because this is another question that always comes up. Yes, this is recorded. Yes, this will be available on YouTube afterwards. And if you happen to have a meeting in between, or kids need your attention or something, feel free to come back later and watch it again. And those are all the slides that I have for now. So because it came up already in the chat, I think we should set the stage a little bit just to put everyone, like, level the playing field, right? So The first question that came up, Max, and I think you're perfect to answer this. What is an MCP server?
Yeah, it's perfect. Thank you very much, Arnaud, for asking this question. It's perfectly timed. It's a great segue for us. So an MCP server. MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. And this is something that was developed by Anthropic last year. And it's kind of taken over as like the default way to extend a functionality of AI models. So you can think of it kind of like an API that your AI system like ChatGPT or Claude or Juni or Copilot or whatever can call to get some information, to trigger some actions, to do all kinds of things basically. So the maybe Niklas, you can share the link. I tried posting it into the comments. So failed. Maybe you can do it so people can have a look.
Let me take care of that.
Yeah, perfect.
Right.
So I mean, the docs, they say it's like a USB-C port for AI applications. I'm not sure I like that analogy. I think it's more like a REST API for AI applications where they can like
some people would say GraphQL because it's more like putting all the pieces together. But we're not that pure. It's really just a fancy API for adding context to an LLM.
Yeah, exactly. So, you can use it for everything. Like lots of we at Nx, we have an Nx MCP server that you can use to query information about your workspace, about Nx Cloud, about all kinds of things. But there's a Spotify MCP server as well where you can chat with AI about your playlists or whatever. So
Cool.
really you can connect anything basically.
I didn't know that Spotify has one. I'm not sure I want Spotify to judge me about my taste of music.
Fair enough.
Also, real quick, because the question came up about MCP with Kotlin, I think it's on the Kotlin YouTube channel. One of our Kotlin advocates did a sample application where he developed an MCP to control the light in his house. So I think it's on the Kotlin YouTube channel somewhere there. You can check that out. Cool. So one question that I have for you, Max, that I'm kind of curious about, because I feel like, and this might be my very perspective and my bias bubble, but I feel like NX was one of the first that really bet on that MCP horse, at least very publicly. So how did that happen? Was it more like, well, this is cool and let's play around with it, and it turned out to be something nice? Or tell me about the background.
Kind of. It's a good question. I mean, as I said, things are moving so fast, this whole AI world. This was, I think MCP really started being a thing November or something, and now it's everywhere. So things are moving super fast. But yeah, I mean, I spent all my day working, trying to figure out how to improve our editor extensions and plugins. I'm really sorry, but you guys at VS Code, you can't agree whether to call them extensions or plugins. So I'm always mixing them up. I'm sorry if I say the wrong word.
Shame. Shame.
Forgive me. But yeah, so VS Code actually, they had a thing called chat participants, which was their original model of extending Copilot in there. So I was playing around with it, trying to see what's possible. And then suddenly I saw some with MCP, which are okay, wow, so there's a generalized model for this that can work in JetBrains, work in Claude Code. Now ChatGPT has a cursor. Now everywhere you interact with AI, basically, it's going to have MCP support sooner or later. So, of course, we want to do the generalized thing.
Okay, one question that I have for you before we dive into the coding part.
Yeah.
I actually was talking to your CEO about that a couple of weeks ago on a podcast. Are you at all concerned that MCP is just a hype right now, that it will be basically eventually be replaced by more capable API LLMs? Because theoretically, most MCP are just an API wrapper. That's also kind of what we are going to do in this stream.
Sure.
So if the LLM or an agent would be more capable of just going to the documentation and figure out, oh, this is how I perform a REST request myself, do you see this MCP hype going away? I'm not talking about weeks, probably also not months,
sure,
but in the foreseeable future.
I mean, who am I to make actual predictions? It could all go away time for sure. But I'm thinking no, because it's a problem that has to be solved. The example you posted, controlling the light switch in your house, you kind of need to have some interface for letting your AI talk to your light switches, because it's not just gonna. I mean, I hope that it's not just gonna send a robot to your house and start clicking the light switch anytime soon. So I think for a long time we're gonna need this layer to kind of make sure that traditional software can talk to AI and the other way around.
Yeah, I think a lot of software, or a lot of MCP, will go away, just not be necessary anymore. Those traditional API wrappers. I think LLMs will be smart enough pretty soon to figure that out themselves.
Yeah.
But for more complex things, so for instance, we have a JetBrains MCP, how to trigger the refactoring capabilities in the IDE. That will take some time. So I think for use cases like that, MCP is going to be a very viable option for quite some time.
Yeah, I agree.
So for this stream, we have something pretty cool and fun planned. Let me open my IDE. So for the people that I just started introducing you, but for the people that don't know me, I'm developer advocate at JetBrains for JavaScript and TypeScript. So obviously, we're going to use web technologies to build an MCP. And I also think this is fairly common right now. I don't want to make like statements that it's the most popular to use JavaScript, TypeScript for MCP development, but it's pretty popular. It's a pretty common thing. And also because we have Max here, we are going to use Nx, besides the fact that I use Nx literally for anything anyway. So Max, I expect to check in my mail next week for that ad slot.
Okay. I mean, I can ask higher ups. I'm sorry.
So the idea for this is basically this. We are going to develop an MCP for NPM. NPM has an API that provides information about packages. And wouldn't it be handy, for instance, if you can ask questions directly, hey, does this package ship TypeScript types, for instance? Or is this package still actively maintained?
Yeah.
We're not going to go super in detail because a lot of that is more around than like fleshing out the API and those kind of things, covering edge cases. This is really more of like a general introduction.
Yeah.
So
I think we'll just show how really easy it is to get started and like build your MCP, because it seems like a daunting thing, but it doesn't take a lot of time. And once you start kind of thinking and your imagination gets going, there are so many cool things, like controlling the light switch, such a cool example of like just some problem you want to solve in your own home or for your own team or whatever.
And to be fair, everything that has protocol in the name seems already like kind of intimidating. Like I get like weird Java PTSD where you have like 300 specifications for like how database interactions work. So for this, I really have a blank project here, well, a blank Nx workspace. So we are using Node.js, and who would have thought Nx has a fancy Node.js package. So we add Nx Node. We will install the internet or not. And then we will create a Node application with Nx. So I will never be able to remember those commands. So I check my cheat sheet.
So Nx generate is kind of a command to just scaffold code for you. And this like kind of just creates a folder, write some files into it, make sure things are set up. You can specify whether you want jest or vtest or ESLint or any of these things. It's Nx Node application.
Yep. Thank you. Node.
There you go. Sounds good.
Cool. So now we have a fancy application here and a very sophisticated statement already. So let's get things started, shall we? We shall.
Sounds good. Let's do more than console log hello world.
Console log is a good starting point.
Yeah, that's true.
I would feel very comfortable pushing that to NPM. It wouldn't be the worst package. So I'm not sure if I actually already installed it, but there is a model context protocol node module that ships types, and it actually ships ESM and CJS for everyone that likes that. I did not install that.
Look at that automatic tooling. Fancy. So yeah, I mean, you say protocol sounds scary, and I get it, but essentially everything is abstracted away from you in this package. Like the team who built this, they have done all the work. So like we're only going to be responsible for like really our implementation details, kind of everything about how the protocol works, how you talk to the server and the AI, and how messages are structured, and how messages are sent, and everything. It's all implemented already. It's all abstracted away from you. So that's really useful.
Yeah, this is one thing that I'm wondering, because the protocol is still in motion, the specification.
Yeah, sure.
I think there was even like last week an update.
I think it was like an update yesterday or something.
Oh my god!
I was just reading through changelog this morning.
So how up to date is this library? Is this maintained by the people that specify the protocol?
Yes. So
okay.
For now, it's all Anthropic, the guys who do Claude, and I think they're eventually, because it's such an important piece of the ecosystem, it's going to be like maybe governed in a different way. But right now, it's one company that develops a protocol and that builds all these clients and takes care of it. So
yeah,
it's all integrated.
Nope, I don't want the transport part, but I want the title. Nope, description. I want description. That's what I was looking for. Right. What is your thing with it? Transport. I want that.
So yeah, there you go. This is an MCP server. It's done. We can
easy.
The stream.
So one thing that I was kind of surprised by is that it communicates over standard in, standard out, kind of like language server do. Why is that?
I think it's just the easiest. Like by default, it's just easiest to spin up the process. There you go. Like you can communicate via HTTP, and you can have remote MCP servers where you have to authenticate with them somehow and everything. So like you can go very, very far, but the easiest thing is just, I'll just spin up this process.
And I mean, remote and MCP also kind of have like a security risk because you're not entirely in charge of what context from your machine is shared with that remote. So there's a little bit of that aspect, and I think the security aspect is still something that they are trying to figure out in the protocol design, because I think authentication was one thing they added recently to the specification. So one thing that came...
Not all figured out yet. Security is definitely a thing where you have to be like aware of what's happening, because you don't want to just install random stuff from the internet. Then your AI will read from your file system and post somewhere, and you have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
Conscious choices.
One question that came up in the chat that I think is worth going over before we keep going, because it might be confusing otherwise. And Max, I think you're much better at answering this question than I am. So what is Nx?
So this is always a harder question to answer than it should be. But essentially, it's a tool that you can install to your repo that makes it faster and smarter in every way. So this goes along. This goes in many directions, but like at the very core, we can orchestrate tasks, we can generate code, and this is kind of, I think these are the main features that we're gonna see today. Like we just saw Jan Niklas use the generator, where it scaffolds code for you in a way that integrates it very well with the whole repo, and then we can run tasks and easily find dependencies between tasks and say, okay, if this runs, then this other thing should run first, and I have to configure these more complex build pipelines, and then you can also cache all the results and everything. So it can do a lot.
That is a fairly accurate statement. I think it's always funny because it was originally like monorepository tools for Angular, and it just grew into so much more since. Like it's still focusing on monorepositories, but it also like branched out into different areas. It definitely branched out in our other areas other than just Angular. I mean, we're not even having Angular installed here. So
Yeah,
NX is definitely.
So we started from the Angular world and the monorepo world, and now we're using it to build this small project, which isn't a monorepo for sure. It's not like we use NX to build our JetBrains plugin, which is in Java, in Kotlin, Gradle. So you can use it for any kind of technology, any kind of stack. And
I use it for my personal website, which is in Astro, so it's very generic. It's very versatile. I like it. Even for like my sample applications, I usually use NX.
Yeah.
Okay, back to MCP. Right. So, Max, what can you tell me about MCP tools?
So, a tool is one of the things that the protocol specifies of what your server can provide. So basically, a tool is like this API endpoint or like a function kind of, where I think a function is a good analogy in this case, where the model specifies some parameters and it says, okay, I want to search packages, for example, and it gives like a string, and then this tool will be called with whatever logic we provide, and the result will be returned back to the model. So it's kind of like the model can call a function via our MCP server. Does that make sense?
I think it does. One thing I was surprised for a tool like this is that they automatically integrated with Zod for schema validation, which I might not have installed yet. Let me see.
Definitely modern stuff.
So for the people that don't know Zod, it's basically a way to define types at runtime. So like have a schema validation, and it supports very strong types. So it yields good TypeScript types, but does runtime checking so that you can make sure. It's very common in like the API space where like you have a REST call or something, and you want to make sure that the server provides an accurate response, so you can use Zod. And this way you can validate that the server response is accurate and up to your schema, and therefore at runtime, you always know this is correct. Well, or you throw an error.
Yeah, in this case, it's the same, right? We want to, like, this is a function, so we have to be able to be sure that the input parameters that the model gives us are right, so we can describe what that should look like with the Zod here.
Yeah. Cool. So what I'm doing here right now, just to provide a little bit more of like narrative or narration. So we created a new package, a new tool called search packages. So you can define a query. So for instance, you could say, hey, tell me about React packages. So it kind of, if we go to npm registry real quick, it kind of is the same as this search here, right? This is kind of what we're trying to emulate. We want to provide informations like this. Okay, this is the last version. It has that many downloads, things like that. This is a license. Those might be information that are relevant if you, for instance, in like an agentic process and you want, an AI has to install a new library. This way you could create like guidelines or something to say, oh, just create, use libraries that ship TypeScript types, that are well maintained, that
aren't beta versions or
yes,
something like that. I don't know.
yes. And how this then works is we create a fancy async statement, and we get our query and our limit in there.
It's all automatically typed with TypeScript, which is really cool because of Zod.
Yeah, this is pretty nice.
Yeah, it's good. Good DX for sure.
Yeah. And in that and this is kind of what we mentioned before, that in this example, we're going to just go to the npm API and use the search query. So it's basically an MCP wrapper around the npm API. I also don't have fetch added to the TS config yet. Let me do that real quick.
So you can see kind of that this glue code mostly. All pieces.
Yeah.
The protocol are abstracted away from you, and all you really do is, okay, I provide a function with a callback that the model can then call. And here we're just talking API or whatever, but it's just kind of trying to get these two systems to talk to each other.
It's always it's very important to have fun while coding. So throwing in funny error messages is my approach to feel joy while working with code. That was very sarcastic.
I hope you have joy while working with code, even without.
I do. I love what I do. So if there are any questions about the code that we write here, right? If there's any like pattern or something that is unknown, feel free to put that in the chat. Otherwise, we just keep talking. Yeah. The other thing that we would need is some kind of response to our LLM, right? We basically now did the direction from LLM to our tool. In that case, this function will be called. In there, we go from our tool to NPM, but now we need the way back from our tool to an LLM.
Yeah.
And we do this with something fancy. Well, we do some parsing and stuff. Let's call this data, because data is a great name. And we kind of want something like... So usually you would, like a proper application, you would do things like type this properly. You would want to handle race conditions if multiple people use this. Things like that are...
Yeah, we don't. Yes. Yeah, for sure. It can get complicated if you start to actually build like production-ready things that lots of people can use.
Was there some gotcha or something that surprised you when you worked on the Nx MCP?
So one thing to be aware of, it's the same with LSP and MCP, they're pretty similar, is you just start randomly console logging things in the server, and it communicates via stdio. You can mess stuff up because the MCP client, so like JetBrains or Claude, they will get that console log message and think, oh, I'm going to try to interpret this as a response from the MCP server. But then it's just some debugging thing, and then this doesn't conform to the schema or something, and it starts becoming messy. So don't be aware of your console logs.
Yeah.
That would be a good say.
Yeah. And MCP has a defined format. So you see here content and stuff. So you can even return multiple content results, which is kind of interesting. Is that something you're using in Nx somewhere? Like what would be the
for sure. So
scenario?
So we have a tool, for example, that can talk to Nx Cloud to get your most recent CI pipelines. So this is like we're building some really cool stuff in my opinion, because we have a lot of, so basically the AI agent can say, you can tell it, I'm going to fix my, please fix my CI. And then it goes, it looks at what recently broke in CI, it can look at the error logs, and then it can start making changes locally and just fix it without you having to do anything. So that's an example, for example, where we have, okay, here are 5 different CI pipeline executions. And it's just an array of these different things. And you can provide more stuff there. It's like, is this an error? And this, it does become more complicated.
The other thing that I just saw, and that is another thing that I always forget, is that you can also return other types of content. So you can also return images and something, which is, I know for a fact, is because the protocol is still in development, something that not every client might support.
Yeah.
But I think it opens up interesting capabilities if you say like NX, for instance, has this architecture overview, like how the packages interact with one another. That could be super cool if you can directly show this in your chat interface.
Yeah, for sure. So I think image support is something that will come. It is already coming, and just with the changelog I read this morning, they added a bunch of cool stuff around this. So for sure, it will come.
Did I say nope? Okay, belongs there. And in case there was some error that we didn't catch, like I don't know, package is not defined. In that case, we would just throw an error.
Yeah,
return.
you can specify here on the content that is, I think there should be an error or something. So you can actually specify that something went wrong, and the model can work with that. And there you go.
Oh, fancy.
And there's so much metadata you can provide as well. Like on the tool itself, you can say, does this talk to the outside world, or is it like a pure function? Is this destructive? There are all kinds of things you can provide that then the model can use to determine how to use your tool.
Cool. So the other thing, I think we wrote 40 lines of code. I usually, I'm very much the person of like, okay, let's write 2 lines of code and test it. So
yeah,
I get a little nervous itch, you know what I mean? So let's let me copy this real quick over. So here we're basically just starting a basic Node.js server with the MCP server connecting via standard in, standard out.
Yeah.
And the last thing we do, because Max made me aware in a preparation for this, that there is a really cool tool called MCP Inspector.
Yeah. You can, the serve command right here is a little bit, this is like for a regular server, but we don't, like, it doesn't really make sense to view the MCP server as a standalone thing, because you have to have a client to talk to it, right? So this inspector is something that is built by Anthropic as well, and it's kind of the UI to debug your MCP server, to see what's available, to talk to it, to test it out. And it's pretty cool. Right. Let's do it. Oh, what went wrong?
Implicit any. My bad. Let's make it an explicit any.
The JetBrains tooling is too good because it already has the any there as an annotation, so you think it's there already, but
I missed that. There was one good question in the chat that I want to pop up real quick. Oh, it's basically more of a summary. So MCP can perform operations on the external tool, which otherwise is not possible with normal LLMs. 100% correct from my perspective, and Max the expert confirms.
Yeah, it gives you a door to the outside world. Everything outside the model, there needs to be some way for the model to talk to it, and MCP is one way to do that.
Yep. Well, it's starting to establish as the way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So, ChatGPT has had search for a long time, and that wasn't through MCP. So they had the ability to talk to the outside world in a different way, but it was like, no, you don't know how it works, right? It's some ChatGPT internal implementation. So the cool thing with MCP is you build it once and then anyone can use it. It's like a language server. You build it once and then any tool can hook into it. Otherwise, I would have to re-implement my logic, my tool for Claude, for ChatGPT, for JetBrains, for VS Code, for Cursor, for everything. In this way, I can just write the logic once and anyone can use it.
Okay, let's have a look at this. And maybe, just maybe, should work. Okay. So, Max, you broke it.
Well, the command, I think the command isn't in there, in the MCP inspector. If you look at the command, just says MCP server everything.
Oh.
I think something went wrong there.
Did I type that somewhere?
I think so.
It sounds like a thing I would say. That's why I'm not sure.
Yeah, fair enough. That's not, I think it's like their placeholder. Basically, you have to let the inspector know how to start your MCP server. So
apps MCP server dist main.js. This looks good to me.
I think you can just update it in the UI and the edit in the browser. So we just and probably just
no, it's what did I call it?
To the executable.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't have to do this yesterday. That is weird.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
You
specified in the argument, so it should just work.
Connect. Max, you broke it. You fix it.
Okay. So how about you specify the absolute path instead of the relative path, just to make sure.
You think?
That these work.
Oh, no, I know what the mistake was. You see?
What was it? Now it works.
So I clicked on this link, not on this link, which fancily says with everything pre-filled, you know.
Okay,
my screen sharing got removed. Let me.
Someone wants to hide their secrets.
Yeah.
What you're giving is too powerful.
Where did it go? Entire screen. Screen 2. What is happening? This one? Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
So, yeah. So now it's pre-filled. We can connect. Let's run. What is? Check if your MPC is running and proxy tokens is correct.
It's like a new thing. I think this is probably something from the release this morning, which changed it.
I literally tested it yesterday evening.
Yeah.
Close you. Connect. Oh my God.
Okay, copy the argument over. Like copy that exact argument that works here, and then click on the other link, just the regular localhost link. Because I'm not sure what this proxy exactly. I think someone called it in the chat. I think there was a space in there somewhere in the argument. So if you remove that space in the argument, it starts with the leading white space
in the argument. Oh my God. Nope. Where? Did you add the proxy session token in configuration? But if I check if your MPC is running and proxy token is correct.
I mean, we can just test it out in JetBrains to the inspector, because this looks like something's up with the inspector and they did something there.
Yeah,
Isn't the link with the token on toolend?
It worked so nicely yesterday.
I mean, you have to. The link is wrong. It's no. Is the dist in there? No. Oh yeah.
Apps, MCP server, dist. It looks good to me.
It does look good.
You didn't implement go to navigation for the package JSON here. I'll create a ticket for you afterwards.
I'll build it. Yeah, sure. Let's do it. That's good. We have it in other places,
okay.
Just not in the
So as you see, I tried it literally yesterday. But let's see if that works. So npm node, copy that. Okay.
No.
It takes way longer than it took yesterday. I'm not optimistic. No.
Are there logs? Maybe the logs will tell us something. Cannot find module. You can also just try if you try just spinning up the server in the command line.
We can do that too.
Without the inspector, you just do node whatever, and we'll see what it says.
Yeah. Oh, just the server without the inspector. You're saying
exactly.
Yep. Let me copy this over because I'm lazy.
Maybe it's the console error that did it.
That
it's there.
Looks good to me. Okay, let's. I feel optimistic. Let's.
Yeah, that looks good. Okay, I think the chat called it. I think there was a line break, so the link wasn't long enough in the UI. Yeah, all right. The chat was way faster than this. All right. Anyway, that's the inspector. It looks really nice.
So this is a great tool. It works flawlessly every time.
We're the problem. It's a skill issue. It's not a tooling issue.
But you now see the list of tools here. Right now, we just have the search packages, and we can add a query like React and get an error because I built a typo probably somewhere. So we do response.json, data. I think it's just data.
Yeah.
I think it's already an array at that point.
Yeah. You have to rebuild it before you try again.
My cheat sheet knew the answer. Okay, do you feel ambitious enough to try it with NX one more time?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
The link.
My assumption. That's okay. And nope.
Okay, now.
Oh, I should probably also increase this by a couple of times, huh? Yeah, that was easy.
Nice. There we go.
Okay. This is another cool thing where you see like the in and output. I like that.
Yeah, you kind of see what the protocol actually does on the background. And it kind of sends these.
Cannot read properties undefined.
Things around.
Data.objects.
I think you trusted AI assistant too much.
I think I trusted your code too much.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I did trust. You should also use the right API endpoint. That would help.
Yeah, that seems like a big help, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, just to give some context on the UI here, it's kind of cool. You can see that NX is configured in a way that before we serve with the model context protocol, we also always make sure to actually build the server before. So it's kind of this task pipeline. And then if you press tab, you can kind of look at all the tasks that went into it in this terminal UI and look at everything. It's kind of nice.
I agree. The new terminal UI looks very fancy. Haha, success, easy.
There we go. Okay.
Just took like 15 attempts. So just to recap, because some people that might join late to the stream, if you would now see like, oh, well, you now figured out what React is from an LLM. That is true, and an LLM probably knows what React is. But if you go for some more esoteric libraries and also having the ability to deterministically provide those information is a huge benefit. And it is a sample application too. So
yeah. I think the NPM example, you could probably like paste the link and the LM could read the link and figure it out. But I still think this is cool, like to be able to, I don't know, you can imagine lots of tools where it can actually be very good at searching the NPM registry and making decisions based on that.
And also due to the cutoff date, if you just say, oh, install the latest version of React or something, it will very likely not be the latest version. So having a tool like this that knows, oh, the latest version is 19.1 of React and was released 2-3 months ago is a huge benefit.
Yeah, sure. Super important to be able to get like up-to-date, accurate information on the internet. Otherwise, that's going to make stuff up.
Yes. The
How are we
question
going to show LLM actually using the tool? The chat is just way ahead of us. I love it.
That is actually the next step, more or less. So let's try this again. So we configured for our AI assistant in JetBrains IDE. Let's start from scratch and add this npm node. I do not have this copy pasted anymore. Okay. That looks good. Working directory because it's a relative path. That looks good too. And it should connect.
There we go. So yeah, so
easy.
JetBrains kind of just spins up our server in the background and can then start talking to it.
Yes. So, and the nice thing we could now do, so for instance, I don't know, I have no idea what prettier is. So if we go, we now see search packages that we declared, and it will automatically add the selection. So if we now do it like that, we sent this to Gemini Pro because that was the last thing that I selected, because I was actually testing something. Yep, and we now see 2, 4, 6, it's probably 10. That would be my assumption. Yeah, that is pretty cool.
Let's ask a question. Let's ask like a question that we want answered. Like, I don't know, what's the latest version of NX? Or yeah, like I think the cool thing about this is as the model can take that information and then use the smarts that it has to like actually analyze the information, ask follow-up questions. Because I mean, what's the latest version is something I just came up with, but it's a pretty basic question we can answer ourselves easily. But if now we say read this file and then take this information from npm and then combine them and start thinking about it and make some decisions, help us out, that's where it becomes super powerful to have these integrations that can read from lots of sources, even trigger actions.
And I mean, we now did it a little bit manual where I explicitly called this tool. Usually in the normal workflow, the LLM would automatically decide to call this tool for this purpose. based on the description provided in those things. So not this description, but this description.
Yeah.
So I think that's really the
world
interesting.
of AI, right? It's all, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. It's not very deterministic, but the AI can use the tools itself.
Yeah. But that's the thing that I really like about MCPs, because it's like a way to add more deterministic behavior to something that is inherently undeterministic, undeterministic, not deterministic.
Sure. So
cool. We are about to hit the end of this live stream. Are there any questions that you might have?
Two Germans trying to figure out how to speak English. Thanks,
Yuri, you are in no position.
I feel offended.
You are in no position to say anything. You're an Italian that is speaking German, so that absolutely doesn't count.
Trying to figure out how to speak English.
Okay. How about we spend 5 more minutes to implement the other tool, because this will work this time, first try, easy peasy. Yeah.
Amazing.
Max, I was kindly asked in the background if you could speak a little louder, just to hear your lovely voice.
Sorry.
Okay, so the other tool that we've prepared, that Max kindly prepared, and I'm now just getting the credits for developing, is for basically to get details about a certain package. So in this time, let's actually remove all this part, and this part, and basically everything. So we want something to get explicit package information. And we have get detailed information about a very specific NPM package. We do need something like the package name still. And that looks pretty good. And package name. And you can go really crazy with what you get out of there, like what are the download numbers for each month and those kind of things. I'm way too lazy to do that.
Oh yeah, just paste it.
I'm a little better than just pasting. A little bit, not much.
8 minutes, yeah, 8 minutes.
Easy. Okay.
Type fast.
I will hurry. Okay. That is not what I want. That's absolutely not what I want. I want more something like this. We want a package response and a download response. And we use promise all because we want to do those calls in parallel. And because I don't want to mess up the API endpoint again, I will copy that part. So basically same thing, calling the NPM API and getting download numbers. And promise all will call those in parallel.
Yeah.
There was a question in the chat, so I'll put everything on pause because questions are way more important than rehashing what we already did. I missed the last part, but you said you don't need to call the tool for the AI to use it, right? That is very absolutely correct.
Exactly.
So you... just to provide some identifier. But if we did things right, yeah, you see it like hopefully in light gray that it uses the search packages here.
Exactly.
So even without...
the model can figure it out itself, be like, okay, for this query, it would be useful to know more about packages. So then it'll just go and make that call itself. If it thinks it's a good idea. You know, sometimes it doesn't. And I think that's actually one of the things that make it so, like, it's difficult to really make these systems deterministic. So like we try our best to guide it with descriptions and everything, but sometimes it's gonna not use your tool and sometimes it will.
Did you have to do anything particular, like, did you shape the description or something to make it like more reliable in a way, or did you just be like, it works?
I know we do a lot, actually. We do a lot, and we're now also starting to have like proper evaluations to be able to tweak things and make changes, because it's new. Like as I was building the MCP, like the first implementation was like, I have a PR that just updates the string somewhere, the prompt is a little bit different, and the description is a little bit different, and suddenly things work, or suddenly things don't work so much. So sometimes programming these days is just writing English somewhere. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, we do a lot to. We have all these descriptions, and every individual option is described, and we also generate, like if you want to, we can generate a file that kind of provides you rule, so that we kind of have this, okay, hey, you're using the Nx MCP server, here's a couple of things to know. If you want to run generators, then follow these steps. Because like, if you provide kind of these guidelines to models, it becomes a lot more reliable. So that's something I would recommend to anyone, to write, to write helper files and rules for your models.
That's really cool. So because it came up in the chat, if I could write this in C# or Python, absolutely not. This is in everyone's interest. You saw how many mistakes I made in the language that I write every day. You don't want to see me write a language that I don't know.
You can do it. Jan can do it.
Yes. Everyone else can, except me.
There are SDKs for C# and Python and Kotlin and everything. It's just that the TypeScript one is easiest, probably.
And TypeScript is really good, or like JavaScript in general, on like manipulating standard in, standard out. So it is kind of nice for that purpose.
Yeah.
Just thinking, can we use more than one MCP from a single prompt? Max, what do you think?
For sure, of course. Like this is where it starts to become really powerful if we start combining these things. So, like for example, we have the Nx MCP, but then there's also one for GitHub. So I can have a question and say, okay, help me fix a couple of issues on GitHub. And then it can like look at GitHub, pull down issues, look at the descriptions, then use the Nx MCP to figure out something about the workspace, then use the npm MCP to figure out something about the package, and then take all that information and combine it and AI magic, and then right. So
I like that. I like that the most scientific term you can come up with was AI magic. That seems very accurate.
Yes, that's what it feels like sometimes.
It does. That's true. Okay, I lied to you all. I won't be able to get the code written in 8 minutes. So as every good developer, I'll copy paste the last parts and talk briefly through it. So much about I'll copy paste real quick.
Nice.
Okay, I prepared something. And it follows really the same shape as before. So it checks out some information from the response. It provides it in more structured data. So it checks like, okay, how many downloads, how many dependencies do you have? Dev dependencies. So if we're talking about like supply chain security, those informations might be relevant. Does the file count exceeds our bundle limits? Those kind of things might be relevant. The homepage actually is an information that is pretty nice to provide, because this way an LLM could be like, oh, this is maybe where I find more information about this. I think there should be an attempt to something like, at least for like the very near short-term future, to support like an open API kind of spec to MCP. I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah, I think that they have like structured output now, so I'm not. Things are changing. Things are changing.
There are a couple of questions. Let me see. We have 1 minute, so
I can answer a question, and you can rebuild the MCP and reconfigure it.
Okay, that sounds good.
So Okay, how about, is it better to chain a bunch of actions in a single MCP or try to hope the LLM uses them all in the right combination? This is such a good question, and it is not clear. It really depends. Like the landscape of all these clients is so varied, where Claude Code, for example, Claude Desktop, it sometimes has this limit of only using three tool calls, and then Cursor with Claude will go and do like 50 tool calls and always keep going and keep going and keep going, even when you don't really want it to. So this is one of these areas where you really have to try to experiment and see how models use your tools to be able to make a right decision there, because like JetBrains, for example, from my experience, isn't that eager to use tools. It's like it rather uses a few tools. So in that case, it would make sense to have like to put a lot into one tool invocation, but maybe for other tools, it would be better to do it the other way around. So it requires experimentation and fine-tuning to be able to do it right.
Just to provide the audio part to what I just did, it works. Ta-da!
There you go. Nice new tool.
I will upload the code for that I wrote here to GitHub and put it in a comment to the video. So if you watch this, look for in the comment section. There will be the link to the GitHub repository.
Perfect.
Okay, let's go over the questions real quick and then wrap things up, because finally, MCP servers REST arc internally, but AI models responses with information with some more readable term. What? There's a question mark, but I don't see it. Is that a statement or a question? I just saw the question mark. So
that is a question. It's not REST explicitly, but it's similar. You can think of it like in a REST API in many regards. But there's like so much stuff going on, and there are ways to like talk back to the client from the server and everything. So it's more complicated than that. But like the tool piece that we just showed, you can think of it kind of like a REST API.
And I think that statement will make some REST API people really, really mad, because there are some purists that have very clear ideas what REST is and what REST isn't.
Yes.
But for the normal developer, yeah, it's kind of like a REST API for now.
Yeah.
How many requests will be sent?
Well, it depends on your implementation, right? In this case, one.
Yes.
I hope.
Well, the first tool will call one. The second tool will call two. Right? If you look at the code real quick, and
can we try it out in the AI assistant?
I guess.
Putting in the spot. I think you have to restart the server because the.
Yes. Can I just?
Should probably. I love it. That's great.
That was absolutely not a hacky workaround. Easy.
No, easy.
Okay.
All right, there's the other tool as well, yeah.
So if we now say, can you provide me information about Solid Start? Right. Solid Start, great library. Now I'm curious to see.
Ah, nice. Yeah, it's perfect. It figures out itself what tools to use, and then talks to the API.
And in this case, it now identified both.
Yeah.
And provides this in like human readable form. That's pretty nice.
That is pretty nice. Awesome.
Cool.
Did it.
All right. Okay, let me jump to my very well-prepared slide deck. So, Max, if people have questions about MCP, what would be a great way to connect with you other than Twitter? Because reasons.
Twitter, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, it's at Max Kless pretty much everywhere. And
cool.
We have the official NX Discord server, so feel free to hop in there, ask questions as well. ping me. I would love to chat. So,
Yeah, I can add your private phone number to the YouTube channel afterwards as well.
Oh,
So
yeah,
if people have
sure.
need questions, just call him.
Yeah, my home address. Maybe you can just send me a letter. Like just come knocking.
Like a pigeon.
Yeah.
And everyone out there, thank you so much for joining us. I do have to do this YouTube thing as part of my annual goal. So if you like what you saw, if you want to get more information like this, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. You know the spiel. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you all coming and hanging out with us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.